The waiting area at Gate 23 of LaGuardia Airport remained steeped in its usual bustle. Well-dressed business people scrolling through their phones, boarding calls blending with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and expensive cologne. Morning light streamed through the large glass panes, glinting off glossy leather suitcases and polished shoes. The atmosphere only truly shifted when the black woman walked in. Ebony Robinson, hair neatly tied in a bun, black blazer, phone in hand, reviewing contracts, stood silently in the priority boarding line. A glance from Security Officer Derek Kane, then a slight nod to his partner. She doesn't exactly look like the business class type, does she? The whisper, quiet enough to melt into the overhead announcements, yet loud enough for Ebony to catch, caused the air to suddenly thin. Footsteps faltered. A hushed weight settled in, as if something serious was about to happen, and indeed, it had already begun. When Ebony approaches the boarding scanner, Kane steps forward with deliberate authority, his heavy boots clicking against the polished floor. "Excuse me, miss, I need to see your identification." His tone carries an edge that makes nearby passengers glance over curiously, some pausing their own boarding process to observe. Ebony pauses mid-step, taking a measured breath before turning to face him. Her dark eyes meet his with steady composure. "Is there a problem, officer?" Kane examines Ebony's driver's license with exaggerated scrutiny, holding it close to her face and comparing features multiple times. He tilts the ID toward the light, runs his finger along the edges, and studies the holographic security features as if examining evidence at a crime scene. Other passengers have already boarded with barely a glance at their documents, their credentials processed with quick efficiency and polite smiles. But Kane treats Ebony's identification like a puzzle requiring careful analysis. "What kind of work do you do that affords business class tickets?" Kane asks, his voice carrying a tone that suggests disbelief. The question hangs in the air, loaded with implications about who belongs in premium cabins. Ebony maintains her composure, though her jaw tightens almost imperceptibly as she processes the inappropriate nature of his inquiry. "I have an important meeting in San Francisco," she replies professionally, her voice steady despite the growing tension. Kane chuckles, the sound devoid of humor and filled with condescension. What kind of meeting could be that important? Board of directors? Executive conference? His sarcastic emphasis on the corporate terms makes several passengers look up from their phones. Martinez stands beside her partner, clearly uncomfortable with his approach but unwilling to intervene. She fidgets with her radio and avoids eye contact with Ebony, torn between professional loyalty and personal conscience. Several passengers have pulled out their phones, sensing something unusual about this interaction. The boarding agent watches nervously from behind her counter, unsure whether airport security protocols give her authority to speak up. The line of business-class passengers grows longer as Kane's interrogation continues. Kane continues his inappropriate questioning. "This ticket belongs to you? Looks pretty expensive. You sure you didn't pick up someone else's boarding pass by mistake?" He waves the boarding pass in the air, studying the first-class designation as if it contains hidden secrets. Ebony's patience begins wearing thin, but she keeps her voice level and professional. "I purchased this ticket last week, officer. You can verify the reservation in your system if necessary." Her offer of verification seems reasonable, but Kane's smile grows more condescending rather than accepting. "Oh, I might just do that. But first, let me ask about that handbag. Looks designer. Louis Vuitton? Chanel? Where'd you buy it?" Without waiting for permission, Kane reaches toward Ebony's purse, his fingers already extending to examine the leather and hardware. Ebony instinctively steps back, her brow furrowing more deeply as she maintains possession of her personal property. "Officer, I don't believe this is standard screening procedure. I've presented valid identification and my boarding pass, both of which appear to be in order." Kane's expression hardens at her reasonable response. "Are you telling me how to do my job? I have the right to question anyone I deem suspicious." His voice rises slightly, drawing more attention from surrounding passengers. The word suspicious echoes through the gate area, causing conversations to pause as people try to understand what's happening. Suspicious based on what exactly? Ebony asks, though she already knows the answer. Her question is calm but pointed, challenging Kane to articulate his reasoning. Kane's jaw clenches as he realizes the implicit accusation in her words. Based on my professional judgment and 15 years of experience in airport security, he responds defensively, puffing out his chest slightly. The gate area grows quieter as more people notice the confrontation, some recording with their phones while others look away uncomfortably. An elderly businessman named Robert Kim watches with growing concern from his seat near the boarding gate. His weathered hands grip his own phone as he discreetly begins recording the interaction, his decades of experience with discrimination helping him recognize the troubling dynamics at play. Kane escalates his demands, his voice becoming more authoritative and aggressive. I need you to open that purse for inspection. Standard security protocol. Ebony politely but firmly declines his request. I'll only consent to a search with a valid warrant, probable cause, or if I'm going through official security screening procedures. Kane's face reddens with anger at her knowledge of legal protections. Now you're obstructing a federal officer in the performance of his duties. That's a serious federal offense. His voice carries across the gate area, causing parents to pull their children closer and business travelers to look up from their laptops. The memory hits Ebony suddenly and powerfully. She's 8 years old again, sitting in the back seat of her father's Camry, while red and blue lights flash through the rear window. The officer's aggressive questions, his hands on their car windows, his assumption that her father must have done something wrong. Her father's careful, measured responses designed to keep everyone safe, his quiet dignity in the face of obvious profiling. That powerless feeling, that burning sense of injustice based purely on the color of their skin, had driven her to create TruthLens AI years later. She had sworn that technology would eventually make such discrimination impossible to hide or deny. Back in the present moment, Robert Kim stands up from his seat nearby, his arthritic knees protesting the sudden movement. Officer, I've been watching this entire interaction from the beginning. This woman hasn't done anything wrong or suspicious. His accented English carries the authority of someone who has seen too much injustice in his 70 years. Kane whips around to face the older Asian man, his eyes flashing with irritation at the interference. Sir, I strongly suggest you stay out of this situation unless you want me to start questioning you as well. Are you traveling together? Are you part of whatever this is? Robert takes a step back but keeps his phone recording, his hands steadier than his voice. I'm simply a concerned citizen witnessing what appears to be discriminatory treatment. Kane's attention returns to Ebony with renewed aggression, as if Robert's intervention has somehow validated his suspicions. Either you open that bag voluntarily and cooperate with this investigation, or I call for backup and we do this the hard way. Don't make things more difficult for yourself than they need to be. Ebony looks around the gate area, seeing dozens of people watching but none willing to intervene beyond recording with their phones. Martinez finally speaks up, her voice barely above a whisper but audible in the tense silence. Derek, maybe we should contact our supervisor before this goes any further. Get some guidance on the proper procedure. Kane cuts her off sharply, his anger now directed at his own partner, Sarah. I told you to stand down and let me handle this situation. Are you questioning my authority too? His harsh tone makes Martinez flinch, and she steps back slightly, clearly intimidated by her partner's escalating aggression. Ebony realizes she's being deliberately targeted and that Kane won't back down regardless of reason or proper procedure. She also knows that any further escalation could result in far worse consequences, including physical confrontation or arrest. The injustice burns in her chest like acid, but she begins calculating her next moves carefully. She needs more evidence, more documentation of this blatant discrimination before she can respond effectively. Reluctantly, Ebony begins reaching for her purse clasp, but her mind is already working on a different level. She knows exactly what tools she has at her disposal, and Kane has no idea what he's unleashed by targeting the wrong person on the wrong day. Kane rummages through Ebony's purse with unnecessary roughness, his thick fingers pushing aside personal items with no regard for their value or fragility. Lipstick tubes, business cards, and receipts scatter across the gate area floor as other passengers watch in horror. A small compact mirror cracks when it hits the hard surface, the sound sharp and final in the tense atmosphere. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding in here," Kane mutters as he continues his invasive search. When his fingers find a small recording device about the size of a USB drive, his eyes light up with vindictive satisfaction. Well, what do we have here? Kane holds up the device like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. This looks like surveillance equipment, some kind of spy gadget or recording device. Why are you carrying surveillance equipment onto an aircraft? Ebony explains calmly that it's research technology for her work, completely legal and properly documented with all necessary certifications. It's a prototype component for behavioral analysis software, Ebony says, her voice steady despite the circus atmosphere Kane has created. I have all the documentation in my briefcase if you'd like to examine the technical specifications and legal certifications. Kane's voice rises deliberately, ensuring everyone in the gate area can hear his accusations. Research into what exactly? Corporate espionage? Are you planning to record conversations on the aircraft? Is this some kind of terrorism reconnaissance mission? The word terrorism sends a visible shockwave through the crowd of passengers. The situation spirals rapidly as Kane waves the device in the air like evidence of a major conspiracy. Sarah, call for backup immediately. I have a suspected security threat with recording equipment. Martinez hesitates, her training warring with her conscience as she watches her partner's behavior escalate beyond any reasonable response. Derek, perhaps we should examine this device more carefully and contact our technical experts before making serious accusations, Martinez suggests, her voice shaking slightly. Kane's explosive response carries far enough that passengers throughout the boarding area turn to stare. Now, Martinez, call for backup right now. His shout echoes off the high ceilings, causing several children to start crying and prompting a gate agent to reach for her emergency communication device. Some passengers hurry away from the commotion while others move closer, unable to look away from the unfolding drama. Ebony attempts to remain calm, but her voice carries a sharper edge as she watches her reputation being destroyed in public. Officer Kane, that device has federal certification numbers and complete documentation. I can prove its legitimacy through multiple government databases if you'll allow me to access my laptop. Kane cuts her off with a sweeping gesture that nearly knocks over a nearby coffee cup. You need to remain silent. You're under suspicion for conspiracy to commit terrorism. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke from an explosion. The word terrorism drops into the gate area like a bomb, creating immediate panic. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Parents pull their children closer, some gathering their belongings to move to different gates. Robert Kim steps forward again, his voice stronger this time despite his obvious fear. Officer, this has gone way too far. This woman presented proper identification and boarding documents. She's answered your questions politely. This accusation is completely unwarranted. Kane points an accusing finger at the older man, his face flushed with anger and adrenaline. Are you part of this conspiracy? Are you providing cover for a terrorism suspect? I'll investigate you next, old man. His threats against Robert cause several passengers to gasp audibly, and one woman begins live streaming the confrontation on social media. Martinez, finally finding her courage despite her fear of Kane's retaliation, tries once more to intervene. Derek, we need to contact our supervisor immediately before proceeding with terrorism accusations. This requires proper chain of command approval. Kane rounds on his partner with barely contained fury. Are you undermining me, Sarah? Are you refusing to follow direct orders from a senior officer? Ebony finds herself caught between an increasingly unhinged officer and his terrified partner, while dozens of passengers document every moment on their phones. Kane forces Ebony to place her hands behind her back for handcuffs, the metal clicking shut with a sound that seems to echo through the suddenly quiet gate area. Several black women in the crowd begin crying, recognizing their own vulnerability in Ebony's treatment and feeling the weight of systemic discrimination. Kane announces loudly enough for everyone to hear, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who believes he's saved the day. "You're under arrest for suspected terrorism, conspiracy to endanger aircraft safety, and obstruction of federal officers." Ebony's composure finally cracks slightly as she responds with her first real show of defiance. "This is blatant racial profiling, and I demand to contact my attorney immediately." Kane drags Ebony through the airport corridors toward a private interrogation room, completely abandoning proper protocol while passengers and airport staff watch in shock. The handcuffs cut into Ebony's wrists as Kane maintains an unnecessarily tight grip on her arm, forcing her to walk faster than comfortable in her professional heels. "You'll sit in this room until I figure out exactly who you are and what you're really planning," Kane declares as he shoves Ebony into a metal chair in the windowless interrogation room. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows that make everything look stark and institutional. Ebony exercises her constitutional rights, requesting permission to contact her lawyer and her company's legal department. Kane laughs mockingly, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. "Your company? What company could you possibly work for? You sell products on the street corner, work in a nail salon, clean office buildings." Ebony grits her teeth, enduring the stereotypical assumptions that reveal Kane's deep-seated prejudices. "I'm not required to answer insulting and irrelevant questions designed to humiliate, rather than investigate legitimate security concerns." Kane slams his hand on the metal table with enough force to make the handcuffs rattle. "You are required to answer every question I ask. This is a matter of national security, and I have broad authority to investigate potential terrorism." His shouting fills the small room, designed to intimidate and break down resistance. Outside the interrogation room, videos of Ebony's arrest begin spreading across social media platforms with viral velocity. Passengers who witness the confrontation upload footage to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, with hashtags like "Black Woman Arrested," "Airport Racism," and "Justice for Ebony" gaining momentum by the minute. Kane receives a call from his colleagues alerting him to the viral videos, which only increases his rage and desperation to justify his actions. "Did you arrange for people to record this confrontation? Is this some kind of elaborate setup designed to destroy my career?" he accuses Ebony, pacing around the small room like a caged animal. "You and your accomplices planned this whole thing, didn't you? Get me to react, record everything, then cry racism to destroy a good officer's reputation." His paranoid accusations reveal how disconnected he is from the reality of his own behavior. For the first time since this ordeal began, Ebony loses her composure completely, her voice rising to match Kane's volume. "I don't need to set up anything. Your behavior speaks for itself. You've conducted an illegal search, made false accusations, and violated my civil rights in front of dozens of witnesses." Kane leans across the table menacingly, his face inches from Ebony's. "Now you're adding resistance to federal officers and making false accusations against law enforcement to your growing list of charges." Martinez enters the room under Kane's orders to provide supporting testimony, but she faces intense pressure to corroborate his increasingly fantastic version of events. Her hands tremble as she realizes her career depends on either supporting her partner's lies or telling the truth about his misconduct. "Sarah, you remember how suspicious she acted from the beginning, right? How she refused to cooperate with standard security procedures?" Kane's leading questions attempt to force Martinez into becoming an accomplice to his discrimination. Martinez struggles between honesty and job security, knowing that contradicting Kane could end her law enforcement career. I remember you asking her questions about her ticket and identification," she says carefully, trying to avoid outright lies while not directly challenging her partner. Kane continues his interrogation with increasingly discriminatory questions that reveal his prejudices. "What neighborhood do you live in? What kind of housing? Who are your associates? Have any of them been arrested before? Do you belong to any political organizations? Each question designed to criminalize Ebony's existence rather than investigate legitimate security concerns. Ebony refuses to engage with his obvious profiling attempts. These questions have no relevance to the alleged incident involving a legal technology device. You're fishing for information to justify your discriminatory treatment. Kane's voice reaches a crescendo, his face red with rage and frustration. Everything is relevant when investigating terrorism. I need to determine your motivations, your connections, your potential for violence. The situation deteriorates further when Kane calls in 2 additional officers, creating an intimidating atmosphere designed to break Ebony's resistance. They begin running extensive background checks and searching for any information that could be twisted to criminalize Ebony's past or present activities. Kane even contacts the FBI directly, speaking loudly to ensure Ebony hears every word of his inflammatory report. I have a black terrorism suspect in custody with sophisticated espionage equipment, attempting to board aircraft for unknown purposes. She's been uncooperative and may have accomplices. The psychological pressure intensifies as Kane tries systematically to break Ebony's resolve through intimidation, false accusations, and the threat of federal terrorism charges. The room feels smaller with each passing minute, the air thick with tension and the buzz of fluorescent lights. Ebony studies Kane's behavior carefully, memorizing details and patterns she'll need later. She notices his micro-expressions when he lies, his word choices that reveal bias, the way he treats her differently than he would treat others. Her training in behavioral analysis serves her well even in this stressful situation. Outside the interrogation room, Robert Kim has contacted legal representation and attempts to advocate for Ebony, but Kane blocks all access to the detained woman. The older man's persistence begins drawing media attention to the airport, with local news stations sending reporters to investigate the viral social media posts. Kane delivers what he believes is his final, crushing blow. You're being transferred to FBI custody for full terrorism investigation. You could spend 10 to 15 years in federal prison for that espionage device and conspiracy charges. His smile radiates cruel satisfaction as he believes he's completely destroyed his victim. Martinez reaches her breaking point, her conscience finally overriding her fear of retaliation. Derek, I think we've gone too far. She doesn't exhibit any signs of actual terrorist activity or intent. This feels wrong. Kane turns on his partner with barely contained fury, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Do you want to lose your job, Sarah? Because that's exactly what's going to happen if you don't support me right now. Are you choosing her side over your fellow officers? Just as Kane prepares to transfer Ebony to FBI custody, Airport Security Director James Thompson bursts through the interrogation room door, his face pale with panic and sweat beading on his forehead. He's just received an urgent call from the airport's CEO, and his hands shake as he confronts Kane with barely controlled desperation. Kane, stop everything right now. Release her immediately. Thompson's voice carries absolute authority backed by genuine fear. Kane turns, confused and annoyed by the dramatic interruption. Sir, I'm in the middle of handling a serious terrorism investigation. This suspect was carrying surveillance equipment. Thompson cuts him off sharply, his voice rising to match Kane's earlier volume. That's Ebony Robinson, CEO and founder of TruthLens AI. Kane stares blankly, not comprehending the significance of the name or title. So what? Terrorists can hold any position. That doesn't change what she was doing. Thompson shakes his head frantically, his voice cracking with stress. You don't understand what you've done. TruthLens AI is the company we just signed a $15 million contract with to upgrade and analyze our entire airport security camera system. The room falls silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of aircraft engines. Kane looks at Ebony with growing confusion and the first hints of genuine fear. His confident demeanor begins cracking as the implications start penetrating his prejudice-clouded thinking. Thompson continues his devastating revelation, each word hitting Kane like a physical blow. Furthermore, Ms. Robinson is the daughter of Judge Patricia Robinson, Chief Justice of the New York State Supreme Court. Do you have any idea what you've done? Thompson's voice carries the weight of a man watching his career crumble in real time. Ebony speaks for the first time since the interrogation began. Her voice steady and confident, completely transformed from the defensive tone she'd been forced to adopt. Officer Kane, the device you called terrorist equipment is actually a prototype of our behavioral analysis AI camera system. It's designed to detect unusual behavior patterns, including discriminatory conduct by authority figures. Thompson's explanation becomes more damaging with each word, his voice gaining strength as he processes the full scope of the disaster. TruthLens AI has contracts with 23 major airports across the United States, 12 major metropolitan police departments, and 15 federal agencies. Their behavioral analysis system has identified over 400 cases of discrimination and abuse of power in the past year alone. Kane's face drains of color as the implications hit him like a freight train. His mouth opens and closes without sound as he struggles to process how completely wrong he's been. But she didn't look like. She didn't seem like. Thompson's anger explodes at Kane's revealing words. Didn't look like what, Kane? Didn't look like a CEO? Didn't seem like someone who belongs in business class? Explain to me exactly what a successful technology executive is supposed to look like. Thompson's questions hang in the air, exposing the racist assumptions that drove Kane's behavior. Ebony stands calmly, removing the handcuffs that Thompson quickly unlocks with trembling fingers. Her entire demeanor transforms from victim to authority as she reasserts control over the situation. Officer Kane, my device has been recording our entire interaction since the boarding gate. It's specifically designed to capture and analyze discriminatory behavior patterns in real time. Kane begins stammering, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. I was just following standard security procedures. I didn't know who you were. I was trying to protect. Ebony's smile is cold and calculated as she watches him crumble. Which standard procedure allows you to question someone's profession based on their appearance? Which procedure permits searching personal belongings without probable cause or consent? Which procedure authorizes accusations of terrorism based on legally certified technology equipment? Each question strips away another layer of Kane's desperate justifications. Thompson delivers another crushing blow to Kane's remaining defenses. Kane, you're suspended from duty, effective immediately pending a full investigation. We're reviewing your entire conduct history and every interaction you've had with passengers. Kane pleads desperately, his voice breaking. Sir, please let me explain the situation. I was just trying to protect airport security. I thought she was suspicious. Ebony interrupts by calmly holding up her phone, the screen displaying a live stream interface with rapidly climbing numbers. I've been live streaming this entire encounter through the TruthLens application since you first approached me at the boarding gate. Currently, 2.3 million people are watching this conversation in real time. Kane looks at the phone screen in absolute horror, watching the view count climb rapidly while thousands of angry comments flood the stream. Ebony continues her methodical destruction of his defense with the precision of a surgeon. Additionally, our AI has been analyzing your micro-expressions, tone of voice, body language, and word choices throughout this interaction. The system indicates a 94% probability that your actions were motivated by racial bias rather than legitimate security concerns. Thompson turns to Kane with undisguised disgust, his voice heavy with disappointment. 23 formal complaints about discriminatory behavior in the past 18 months, Kane. 23 complaints that were handled internally and quietly dismissed. How many people did we fail to protect because we enabled your behavior? Ebony nods approvingly at Thompson's recognition of systemic failure. I'll be very interested to see how your department addresses systematic discrimination moving forward, Mr. Thompson. This incident represents an opportunity for meaningful reform. Within 2 hours of the video going viral across multiple social media platforms, Kane's life begins systematically crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. TruthLens AI releases a comprehensive analysis of airport security footage showing Kane had engaged in discriminatory behavior toward passengers of color at least 23 documented times in the previous 6 months alone. Ebony holds an impromptu press conference right in the airport terminal, surrounded by reporters, cameras, and curious travelers. Today, I experienced firsthand what millions of people of color endure daily in America. The difference is that I had the technological tools and legal resources to document and prove the truth of what happened here. The truth. Lens data reveals Kane's pattern of discrimination in devastating detail that destroys any possibility of denial. Statistical analysis shows he questioned black passengers' identification documents 5 times more frequently than white passengers. He used different language, tone, and body language depending on passengers' race. Voice pattern analysis revealed subtle but consistent changes in his speech when interacting with people of color. 15 formal complaints about Kane's conduct had been filed over the past 2 years and quietly dismissed through internal review processes that never resulted in meaningful consequences. Martinez faces her own investigation for complicity but cooperates fully with federal authorities, hoping to salvage her career through honesty. She admits in her sworn statement that Kane had repeatedly instructed her to pay special attention to passengers of color, creating a hostile work environment she felt powerless to challenge due to the hierarchical nature of law enforcement culture. The FBI opens a comprehensive federal investigation into Kane for civil rights violations and abuse of power under color of law, charges that carry potential sentences of up to 10 years in federal prison. The police union initially attempts to defend him but quickly withdraws support when presented with overwhelming video evidence and documented pattern of misconduct. Kane's desperate attempts to control the narrative fail completely as more evidence emerges daily. His social media defense strategy backfires spectacularly when he posts, "I was just doing my job, protecting travelers from potential threats." TruthLens AI responds by releasing additional evidence of similar incidents involving Kane's discriminatory conduct toward other passengers. Kane's wife, Jennifer, an elementary school teacher with 15 years of tenure, faces intense scrutiny when her own social media history reveals discriminatory comments and posts that align with her husband's behavior. The school district launches an investigation into her classroom conduct, interviewing former students and parents about potential bias in her teaching. Their 17-year-old son, Marcus, gets removed from his high school football team when teammates and parents learn about his father's viral behavior. College recruiters withdraw scholarship offers, and Marcus faces social isolation at school as the video spreads among his classmates. LaGuardia Airport terminates Kane along with 3 supervisors who had systematically covered up his previous misconduct through inadequate investigations and dismissed complaints. Ebony accepts an invitation to serve as a paid consultant on developing new anti-discrimination policies, training programs, and oversight mechanisms. Kane loses his job, his pension, his reputation, and faces potential federal charges carrying up to 10 years in prison, plus substantial financial penalties for civil rights violations. He applies desperately for positions at other airports, private security companies, and law enforcement agencies, but the viral video has made him completely unemployable in any security-related field. Martinez keeps her position conditionally, required to complete 100 hours of civil rights training, 100 hours of community service with civil rights organizations, and psychological evaluation to address her failure to intervene earlier. She publicly apologizes to Ebony in a written statement and commits to becoming an advocate for fair treatment of all passengers. Robert Kim receives recognition from TruthLens AI as a courage ambassador for standing up when he witnessed injustice, despite potential personal consequences. His willingness to intervene despite his own vulnerability becomes part of the company's diversity training materials used across multiple industries. Kane's family faces ongoing consequences that extend far beyond his individual punishment. Jennifer transfers to a different school district to escape negative attention, taking a significant pay cut and losing her seniority. Marcus changes his name on social media applications and applies to colleges using his mother's maiden name, hoping to escape his father's toxic legacy. The entire family enters mandatory counseling to process the trauma of Cain's actions and their far-reaching consequences. Cain's elderly parents, both retired teachers, face embarrassment in their close-knit community and struggle to understand how they raised someone capable of such behavior. Local news stations launch investigative reports into Cain's history, uncovering additional incidents that hadn't been properly documented or reported through official channels. Former colleagues come forward anonymously, describing a years-long pattern of discriminatory behavior that management had systematically ignored or minimized. Ebony's company stock price rises 37% following the incident, as investors recognize the immense value of transparent accountability systems in an era of increasing awareness about institutional discrimination. TruthLens AI receives inquiries from hundreds of organizations wanting to implement similar monitoring and analysis systems. 3 months later, Ebony stands before a packed congressional subcommittee hearing room on civil rights and technology, her composed presence commanding attention from representatives, media, and gallery observers. Technology alone cannot solve the deep-rooted problem of discrimination, but it can make truth undeniable and accountability unavoidable in ways that transform institutional behavior. Cain serves a 2-year federal sentence in minimum security prison plus 500 hours of community service working directly with civil rights organizations. During his incarceration, he participates voluntarily in rehabilitation programs focused on understanding implicit bias, systemic racism, and the psychological roots of prejudice. The programs force him to confront uncomfortable truths about his worldview and behavior patterns. He writes a sincere, detailed letter of apology to Ebony, taking full responsibility for his actions without making excuses or seeking sympathy. The letter, reviewed by prison counselors and civil rights advocates, demonstrates genuine remorse and understanding of the harm he caused. Ebony shares her perspective with the congressional committee, her voice carrying both strength and compassion. "I didn't pursue justice against Officer Cain out of revenge or personal hatred. I wanted to demonstrate how transparent systems and accountability mechanisms can change institutional culture to prevent others from experiencing what I endured." TruthLens AI technology deploys at 75 airports nationwide and 12 international locations, resulting in a documented 78% reduction in discrimination complaints and a 43% improvement in passenger satisfaction ratings among travelers of color. The system also provides ongoing training for security personnel, using real-time feedback to help them recognize and correct unconscious bias before it impacts their professional conduct. Training modules include Ebony's experience as a case study in how discrimination escalates and the importance of intervention. Martinez transforms into a powerful advocate for civil rights in aviation security, frequently speaking at training seminars and law enforcement conferences. She shares her experience of being complicit through silence and encourages other officers to speak up when they witness misconduct, regardless of personal consequences. Her courage in eventually standing up to Cain, though delayed, becomes a case study in ethical leadership and the importance of moral courage in institutional settings. She has since been promoted to a supervisory role where she implements new accountability measures. Ebony reflects on the broader implications during her congressional testimony, her words carried live on C-SPAN and social media. Real change doesn't come from punishment alone. It comes from creating transparent systems that encourage accountability and personal growth while protecting vulnerable populations from discrimination. The incident leads to federal legislation requiring implicit bias training and technological monitoring systems at all major transportation hubs, with funding allocated for implementation and oversight. Ebony's technology becomes the gold standard for detecting and preventing discrimination in public spaces, with government contracts worth over $200 million. Robert Kim continues his role as a TruthLens ambassador, traveling to conferences and training sessions to encourage bystanders to intervene safely when they witness injustice. His example demonstrates that individual courage, regardless of personal vulnerability, can catalyze systemic change with far-reaching consequences. Ebony concludes her testimony with hope and determination. Officer Kane's actions that day were wrong and harmful, but they inadvertently created an opportunity to build something better. We can choose to use technology, compassion, and accountability to create a more just society where everyone's dignity is protected. Have you ever witnessed injustice but remained silent, paralyzed by uncertainty or fear of consequences? Ebony Robinson's extraordinary story proves that technology combined with individual courage can transform the world around us, creating accountability where none existed before. Download the TruthLens AI application to document and report discriminatory behavior you encounter in your daily life. Every video recording, every incident report contributes to building a comprehensive database that makes discrimination visible and creates legal accountability for institutional change. Share Ebony's story across your social media platforms to spread the powerful message that justice will ultimately prevail when we have the technological tools and personal courage to demand it. Comment below about similar experiences you've witnessed or endured, creating a community of support and shared advocacy. Remember to follow Robert Kim's courageous example the next time you see someone being treated unfairly based on their race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. Stand up, speak out, record if safe to do so, and be a witness for justice in moments that matter.